Many thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. Over 1,500 entries across YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. That's how many entered the giveaway to win the new Nisi V7 filter kit with circular polarizer. And I do have a winner selected, so be sure to stick around for that. Now, it takes a lot to get me really excited about something. I'm usually a pretty mellow and even keel guy, but I haven't been this ramped up about a software update since the original introduction of range masks in the Lightroom, which is what, maybe 3 or 4 years ago now. And I'm sure by now you've heard that the new Lightroom update was just released last week, and I wanted to make sure I became as fully comfortable as I possibly could in a relatively short amount of time, just a few days, with all the ins and outs of the new update before releasing this video. And after testing it out last week, I must say I didn't think Adobe would ever add this level of refinement and control into Lightroom, as I felt they'd want to reserve that level of precision just for Photoshop. But what a welcome surprise it has been. So there's a ton of incredible features with the new update. And there's already a plethora of great videos out there that'll provide you with a full rundown of each and every new feature. But in this video, I want to go over the things that I find most exciting for the way that I edit my landscape photos. And I want to take this photo right here to this photo right here, only using the tools inside of the new update. So once again, here is the raw file, and here is the final version. Once again, raw file and final version. And about 90% of all this is done inside of the new layer masking, or I shouldn't say layer masking, but kind of range masking tools inside of the new update. So to jump right into it, let's go back to the original file right here. I'm going to come up to the develop module. And if you've already updated your Lightroom, this is probably the area where you're going to see the very first change. And it has to do with where your radial filter and your graduated filter and your paintbrush are now contained. So if you just select this right here, these are all your masking tools. As you can see up here, you still have your brush tool. You have your linear gradient tool, radial gradient. You have your color range mask and your luminance range mask. And one of the cool things about this is that you now have the color range mask and the luminance range mask separated from the filters. So you don't have to use one of those filters to apply a range mask, and which I think is pretty cool. It opens up the possibility of additional creative ways to edit your photos. I'm sure there's ways that I haven't even thought about just yet, but it's pretty cool to have those two things separated. Now, what I think is really neat is this right here. Right at the very top, you have select subject and select sky. And as advertised, that's exactly how it operates. So for this image right here, I'm just going to hit select sky, and it's going to go ahead and build a mask just for the sky. And you can see that it did a really good job. And here is where all of the masks are contained. And you can move this wherever you want to use or whatever is good for your workflow. You can even dock it right here in this area, but I usually like to put it right here. So we're just going to name this, double click on that, and just name it sky. And then I'm going to come over here and let's start to just warm it up just a little bit, maybe about, maybe a little more than that. And let's bring the exposure down a fair amount, maybe about there. Let's bring the highlights down some. Let's bring the shadows up a little bit, right there. Let's bring these highlights down a little bit more. Let's bring the whites down some, about right there, looks good. And saturation, I'm going to bring the saturation down. As you can swing this, as I swing this back and forth, you can really see what that's doing. But I want to remove some of that blue. This image feels a little bit more moody to me, and I want to remove some of that blue and have kind of that dark sky, that ominous look to it. Now, what's really neat is this right here. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to hit create new mask again, and we're going to come up to select sky. But this time, what we're going to do is we're going to hit these three little dots right here to the right of sky, and we're going to invert this mask. And what that did is now it is removing the sky and it's only targeting the ground. And I think that is super cool because within seconds, we're able to create a mask just for the sky. And within seconds, we're able to create a mask just for the ground. So we're going to label this one right here, ground. And now we'll go ahead and make our adjustments for the ground. So let's warm the ground up a little bit, maybe about there. Let's increase the exposure just a little bit, not too much. Maybe a little bit of contrast. I think about there, looks good. Maybe bring the highlights down a little bit. Let's bring the shadows up. Let's open those up some. Let's, anything with the whites. Let me bring the whites up to +12. I don't think anything with a black point. Let's add a little bit of texture. Let's add a little bit of clarity. Maybe even play around with the dehaze a little bit. There's a little bit of haze in there. And what's cool is we can toggle these on and off. So each layer has its own little eyeball right here. And that's a really cool feature with this, with the new update, is all the different on and off buttons. I love good on and off buttons, and there's a lot of them inside of this update. So we can turn off each layer individually. That's the ground. We can come down here to the sky, toggle this on and off. Or we can actually come up here and use this switch right here to toggle all the masks on and off. And what's neat is if you look at this thumbnail here, when I toggle these on and off, you can see what a dramatic difference was made only using 2 masks in an extremely short amount of time. Now, if I want to emphasize some of the naturally occurring light that's hitting these mountains, let's create another mask right here, and let's go to luminance range. And this might look a little bit familiar. It basically works the same way as range masks did in previous versions of Lightroom, but I find it to be a little bit more user-friendly, I should say. It has a little bit better control. So let's go ahead and start to drag this side over. We just want the areas in red to be targeted. So, and this is really the area that I'm looking at right here where I want to emphasize some of the light. So let's bring the right side over some to kind of remove the brightest areas of the scene, which is basically the clouds. Maybe about right there. And then you even have this little feather control right here, which is going to determine the graduation of that adjustment, basically how quickly that transition zone occurs, whether you want that transition zone to be very abrupt or if you want it to be kind of very soft and gradual. So I'm just going to kind of soften that up just a little bit there. Maybe about there looks pretty good, I think. And now we can go ahead and make our adjustments. So maybe we'll just warm this portion up just a little bit and I'm going to overdo it and it'll make sense in just a second. Now what I want to do is, now that I have my luminance range selected, I want to go in and I want to determine exactly where I want that. So this is where we can actually apply a graduated filter or maybe a radial filter or maybe an adjustment brush. And the way to do that is by hitting these 3 dots, and we're going to come over here and select intersect mask with, and we're going to select maybe a radial gradient. I'm going to draw a radius right around here, kind of bring it down like this. Something else is really cool with this. Remember before, if you wanted to soften the transition of the feather, you had to do that over here. You no longer have to bounce over there to do it. You can grab this little red dot right here, and if you look at the feather menu bar or slider on the right side, you can see that that's being impacted as I change this. So you can actually do it right here on the masks. So I think I'm going to leave it right around 75. I always like that kind of transition right through there. And as you can see, when I drag this around, that radial mask, or that luminance mask, kind of runs with it. So if I bring it all the way up here, you don't see any of that red area. But as I drag it over here, you start to see, and that's the luminance range mask coming into effect here. So I'm just going to drag it to about right there. And now I can kind of bring this exposure down to a more reasonable amount for this particular instance. So I think it's somewhere about there. Maybe warm it up just a little bit. Maybe add a little bit of highlights, maybe add a little bit of white right there. And if I toggle this on and off, this is before and after. Let me turn off the mask overlay. So this is before and after, before and after. So now you can actually see how splitting up the luminance range mask and the color range mask from the actual radial filter and graduated filter and the adjustment brush, there's a lot of different creative ways to apply that technique. You don't always have to use one of those filters to apply one of those range masks. It's separated now. I do want to apologize. You're probably hearing the fans on my computer really taking off. I think that there's a lot of power in the new Lightroom update. I don't have the most powerful MacBook Pro. I think this is about 2 years old now. It's not one of the new M1 supercomputers or anything like that, so it does kind of make my computer work for the new adjustments, I guess I should say. So we have that done here. You can actually go through here and you can right-click these and you can duplicate these types of things and you can drag them to other areas of your scene. Like we could do something like right here and brighten that up as well if we wanted to. So there's multiple different ways. That was a similar carryover from the recent or from past updates as well, being able to duplicate these types of adjustments and just kind of put them all over your scene. Now something else, let me go ahead and name this right here. Let's just name this one here, light. Now, if we wanted to, so this area right through here, always kind of bugged me about this image. It's just kind of just like, this is an iceberg here. This is, actually not an iceberg, it's glacier. It's a glacier right here. But this area right through here, this kind of just dirty snow, dirty ice, I want to remove that. And I think this is a pretty good use case for this right here. So if I come up here to create mask, let's go over here to color range, and let's just pick a color right here, maybe draw a little square. Let's see, yeah, that did a fairly good job. Let's kind of maybe refine it a little bit further to somewhere about right there. I think looks pretty good. And let's drop this down, select intersect mask with, how about a radial filter? And let's kind of draw that right over here. And you can see where how that's targeting only those kind of, that dirty ice color. That's kind of like a brownish, it's just a dull color. It's not very appealing or attractive or anything like that. And if I drag my mask up here, you see that that red area is gone because it's only going to target that one specific color. And I think that looks good there. Let's turn the mask overlay off with the shortcut key O. And if I drag the saturation down, you can see what it's doing. If I pull the saturation all the way up and just kind of swing this back and forth, you can see that it's only targeting that color, which is great. You could do this in the old update as well, but the functionality here is just a little bit different. So I'm going to bring the saturation way down. Let's bring the whites up a little bit. You could even bring the exposure up just a touch as well. And let's toggle that on and off. So that's before and after, before and after. And let's label this clean ice and hit OK. And as you can see, let me zoom back out here. Let's close this down. Go back to our filters. You can see all of them right here. So we have our sky here, and you can hover over any of these. So this is our sky, this is our ground, this is our little patch of light, this is the clean ice area right over here. And it just builds, and every time you add a layer, it all kind of adds up in the same little kind of layer area. They don't operate exactly how layers do inside of Photoshop, but it really feels kind of like that. So once you add all these in here, like I said, you can turn them all on and off individually, which I think is a very nice touch. Got our ground here, we got our sky here. You could turn all of them off here. Like I mentioned before, if this starts to get really, really long, which sometimes it does, you could bring it over here. Let me show you the final version of this photograph, which is right here. Let me go to the develop module. I just want you to see all the layer masks here. And here they all are. All of the different layers. You can see all the different dots where I just added some additional light. So if I kind of toggle this on and off, you can see that light kind of building in right there. Let's see right here, remove the aqua. There's a couple areas where they had this kind of distracting aqua in the ice, so I removed that as well. More mountain light, as you can see that coming through right through there. And then of course the ground, and then we had the sky as well. Let me go back to the image that we were working on. I just wanted you to see what a full kind of layer list would look like. And I don't believe there's any limit. At least I haven't seen any limit just yet. But if I come back up here to develop, what we can do now is once you have all those kind of global adjustments in there, and I do want to just toggle all the layers on and off one more time. This is before and after, before and after, and all of that was done using just the new tools inside of the update. There was no global adjustments done. If we close this down, we look in the basics section, nothing was done here. So what we can do now is we can add some more contrast to the overall scene. Maybe we want to reduce the exposure a little bit. Maybe we want to come down to the effects panel and add a pretty strong vignette to just kind of add to that overall mood of the overall scene here. Overall mood of the overall scene. But maybe we wanted to go to the tone curve and just kind of fade the dark areas of the scene just a little bit, so there's not quite as much kind of, I let that filmic look a little bit. Maybe kind of pull this up some. I'm doing this really quick here. It's kind of hard to do this swiftly, I should say. But if I turn this on and off, and if you just look at the darker tones, that's probably overdone just a little bit. But once you have all of the layer masks, I keep calling them layer masks. I don't know if that's the appropriate term for it or not. But once you have all of those completed, then you can kind of come in here and start to do your global adjustments from that point. If we want to warm up the overall scene just a little bit, we can. Kind of add a little bit more tint to it. We could do that if we wanted to. But there's a ton of power inside of the new Lightroom update. And that's just a real quick rundown Of the things that I find most beneficial, I love the being able to create a mask for the sky super quickly. I love being able to invert that mask to target the ground. I love the organization, being able to name those. Those are all, name each mask update, I should say. Those are all things that weren't present in the original update, original range mask update. So I think this is perhaps one of the biggest changes to Lightroom that I've seen since the original introduction of range mask. And I can't wait to continue to play around with it, because I've only scratched the surface of all the potential that this really does unlock. And I'm sure that there's a lot of things that will be discovered, the more that you use it. So I really do hope that that was helpful. And before I do wrap up this week's video, I just want to say a real quick thanks to the sponsor, which is Squarespace, who I use for all of my website and e-commerce needs. Squarespace provides a dynamic and attractive online platform to create your website. You can display your photography using Squarespace's professional portfolio designs and customize the layout and look and feel of your gallery just so you can make it your own. With Squarespace's traffic overview feature, you can track trends in page visits and views to better optimize your content, and you can even grow and engage with your customers with Squarespace's email campaign tools, which will enable you to create engaging emails that match your website with your products or blog post and logo, just so your messaging remains consistent. So if you're looking to start a new website or possibly upgrade your current website, check out squarespace.com/Mark Denney for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. So as far as the giveaway is concerned, the new Denney V7 filter kit comes with a really nice bag, the lens cap, the filter holder, the polarizer, all the step-up rings. The giveaway for that, like I mentioned, over 1,500 entries, which was absolutely incredible. And basically what I did, like I do in all of the giveaways, is just a completely random draw. So there was so many great comments and inspirational pieces of advice in there. And it's fantastic just to kind of read through all of these. But the winner of the new Denney V7 filter kit this year is a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Davis. So Nicholas, go ahead and shoot me a message. Either you can email me through my website or shoot me a direct message on Instagram, whatever is easier for you, and just let me know where Denney should send this out to you, and they will get it out to you in the mail ASAP. It'll be pretty quick, actually. So I really do, I just want to say thank you to everyone who did enter the giveaway, and many thanks to everyone who watched this week's video. As always, I really do appreciate it. And if you did enjoy it and you did find it helpful, if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.